Hey guys, we want to welcome you to another episode of The Hive is Live. And we have a very special guest on here today, hailing out of Austin, Texas, the one and only Mr. Clint Turner. Dude, I saw Clint in a group, I want to say this is probably a year and a half ago. And I just started clicking around on your page. I'm like, man, this guy really knows his stuff. And then it seems like you went from a semi-new investor to like, holy smokes, in a very short amount of time. And I've always been excited to chat with you and network with you. I know you're doing some substantial size land deals. I'm sure we're going to get into that. But why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are, your background, and what you're doing in real estate?
Yeah, man, sure. Appreciate you having me on. And thank you. Yeah, I've been doing this for about 6 years now. I started I went and got an engineering degree first, which I have not really
Dude,
used.
I was going to guess engineer. That was my first guess for you.
No, I've only used it in a little bit of like land development projects. I mean, I used it in my W-2 for a while, but anyhow, so I was in the W-2 world for a while. Standard story, wanted out of that. So I was doing all sorts of stuff. My most notable business was I was buying ATMs and putting them places, trying to build an ATM network, but I feel like ATMs are dying. So it's kind of hard to get it's kind of hard to get excited about that idea. So somehow I found my way into land. I went through one of the programs just kind of on a whim,
Who'd you
and
train with? Who'd you train with?
I did the Land Geek first.
Land Geek. Okay,
I did
nice.
Land Geek first, but since then I've probably bought just about every course there is out there, always trying to learn different tips and tricks.
Hmm.
But yeah, I did that. And, I did my first land deal. I bought a property for like $1,000, $900, something like that. And I sold it for 1,500 down and 250 bucks a month for
Hmm.
4 or 5 years. I don't remember. And it was the first like substantial, like, um, I guess substantial entrepreneurial win I really had at that point. And so land just kind of stuck with me. And then since then, I have just gone down the rabbit hole, done all sorts of different deals, owner finance, creative finance, buy, sell, wholesale flip. We're doing some development, subdivide stuff now. So kind of trying to round it out and um, figure out all the different land facets. And it's been a journey. It's been fun. And you know how it is, man. It's always a new day. Always a
So
new day in the land business.
let me ask you this. So you've been in land and haven't switched at all. No houses, no nothing, just strictly land mostly is your main focus.
Yeah, I never have. I have bought a couple properties that have had houses on them. So I've done some house rehabs and some flips and such, but never on purpose. um, and I take that back. When I was getting into real estate, I was trying the wholesale strategy and trying the flip strategy. And I was working with somebody else, so I had a little exposure there. But since I did that land deal, man, it's just been 100% land, nothing else.
I mean, when you print money out of thin air, you kind of lose all hope and everything else.
Right. I mean, you like for someone like me who was looking for a way out of like the job, right? And then B had never really had that super steady source of income. Like land was just like it just grabbed onto me and just held on to me. And so I kept running at it. And eventually I built up a big note portfolio, and that kind of took a lot of the money, the monthly can I pay my bills stress off. And since then, just give me a lot of freedom to kind of grow the business. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, I kind of got into it, I think, by accident myself because I'm a general contractor and a home builder and all that stuff. I've never built a home, but I'm licensed for it. But I've been in remodeling my whole life. And I started seeing these guys on YouTube saying that they were doing marketing to acquire real estate leads. And so once I kind of caught on, I'm like, okay, I can do that. I know marketing. I've been doing marketing for a very long time. So in my mind, I pictured myself like buying the houses and doing those types of flips. And I got a farm, Grandview, Texas, just south of Fort Worth, and I made 85 grand. And I was a new guy. I was like, okay, I'm not going to do houses anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we completely switched our focus 100% to land, and yeah, we're never looking back. Same thing. We're just almost on the tail end of our very first subdivide, 108 acres. So can you talk a little bit about that? How does that work? How do these subdivides work? Are you doing any kind of developing? Or are you just surveying them off and flipping them? And kind of what areas are you interested in?
Yeah, so it just depends. So I built a huge buyers list and kind of like land following, I guess, through like Southern Colorado, West Texas, and some different parts of Arizona. And so we've had a lot of buyers out there. So our first projects were relatively small speaking. We'd find like 100 or 200 acres and we just cut it up into the minimum, the maximum minimum size, right? So like for Texas, it's 10 acres. For Colorado and Arizona, it's 35 or 36, depending on where you're looking. And when you go that route, you don't have to do all the development work and all the, you can just get it resurveyed and cut the lots up and sell them off. So we did a lot of that at first and sold to our existing list. We still do. So that's one type of deal that we like to do. And, it's like those standard almost always are like 1 to 400 acres. And we just buy them and cut them up into whatever the maximum yielding shape is basically for that property. Depends on road frontage and stuff like that. But, they always yield massive amounts. Like we just finished one up. I mean, it's nothing crazy, but it's like we bought this property, 100 acres for like 60 grand, cut it up into 10 lots. It was like 108 acres, bought it for 60 grand and cut it up. And we sold it all off on financing for like 400 grand, and we got most of our money back. I think more down up front. And then the rest just pays over time. And it's just like the printing money. You know what I mean?
I like the way you're almost shameful about that one. Like we only made like 340, but hey, what can you do? What can a guy do?
Well, it's steady cash flow. It's steady cash flow over a few years. But no, I like those. But we're starting to get into some bigger ones. Like we're working on a couple here in Texas, where we're buying in the $1 to $2 million range, and then we're doing, call it $200 to $300 an acre in minor development. So like road bases, electric extensions, site work, things of that in effect, and then just cutting them down and do again maximum yield for the shape of that property, and then turning and selling them off. And we're normally able to around double. That's kind of my metric. I want to like double what it's worth, right? So if I'm buying it for 15,000 an acre all in, I want to see that I'm selling it around 30,000 an acre, and that can be a little lower, honestly, like 25, 30, but I want to see 70 to 100% increase in value, right? And generally, when you see that, then it's kind of a back of the hand, like, yeah, it's probably a good deal.
Yeah, I think that's where I kind of start right at about the 2x. A lot of my big buyers that are buying the multiple 7 figures, they want to see like a 2 to 2.5x to make sure that everybody's paid and there's some room to do some of that light development. But yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Personally, yeah, so far we've been having some luck with just cutting them up with surveys and running it through engineering firms and that kind of stuff. But our eyes are open now, so we're looking for that, a lot more of that. I want to play the game. So I was actually going to call and consult with you because, like I said, I kind of did my first one just like clunking along. But now that we're ready to start looking at even larger ones, I want to make sure that I don't miss anything, man. So that's what I really love about this business and networking with people like yourself who are so open and willing to share. So we're grateful that you chose to hang out with us and take a closer look at what we're doing, and we hope to reciprocate and drop some big deals in front of you as well. I'm waiting to do a JV deal with you.
Yeah, man. We're just waiting for that property to come along.
Yeah, we'll grab one. We just put a list north of San Antonio and then surrounding all of Austin and everything. So you were actually going to be the first person I was going to bring them to see what we could do with them.
Yeah, I was going to say you'll probably find you're going to find a lot of crazy people who think their land's
Oh, I've been seeing those too, man. Yeah, I think I got one sent to me today, like at 105 an acre. I was like, dang, that sounds like what it would go with the roads already dropped in. So.
Right, that sounds like what it's worth, already developed and
with asphalt roads.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, what can you do? I found a guy too in Taylor, Texas, 10 acres, and I think he wanted like 2.5 mil for 10 acres. I was like, yeah, what are you gonna build there? A skyscraper?
Some people will say, man, well, my property's different. That's my favorite line. It's like, well, mine's different. We have 2 wells, and we have a pond. It's like, okay, so does every other effing property that area, you know what I mean?
So does the one to the north and south of you, Papa.
Yeah, right.
No, it's cool, man. I get it, because we from our perspective, we're grabbing these things by like the hundreds and the thousands, and for them, that's like their whole entire life's work. Right? They've got like my grandpa gave me this. We got 200 years invested into this land, so I get it.
Hold on, they want to get what it's worth, but sometimes you're just so far off, you're never gonna get that.
Yeah, like double retail. Like, yeah, you'll sell it for that in 2044.
Right? Yeah.
When inflation catches up.
Yeah. So what are you guys doing for marketing, man? Primarily, like, are you still hitting a lot of mail, or are you guys working on other? I saw you post something one time about texting. I'm not too sure where you guys were going with that.
Yeah, so like personally, like my shtick with marketing and what I teach is find a channel and master it. You know what I mean? Don't do direct mail for 2 months and then be like, oh, I'm going to switch to texting and then I'm going to do cold calling. Then I'm going to try to do it all at one time and I haven't even gotten good at one of them. You know what I mean?
I don't know why I haven't got a deal.
Right. It's so like pick a channel, stick to it and work it. These days, my favorite strategy is still direct mail. It's funny. We stopped, like we didn't do any mail from late November to the beginning of January. And just this week, a little bit of last week, we've just had some mail responses rolling in. And I guess prior to that, for the last 45 days, it had been all text leads. And it's just so funny how much more motivated and less like snobby the people that we find, the real ones that respond to your direct mail, not the haters, but the real people that respond. Just so much more willing to work a deal. So I'm never going to go away from direct mail. I think done properly, it's probably the best lead source in my opinion. But that's the catch, is properly, right? Like everybody wants to send the same damn letter that's been sent 10 million times, probably 100 million times at this point. And it's like direct mail is marketing. You know what I mean? Like direct mail is a function of marketing. Everybody takes a course and they're like, oh, I just got to send 2,000 mailers. It's like, no, you're engaging in the discipline of marketing. And so like you need to understand how to connect with somebody on the other end of that letter, what kind of other touch points you can have, right? Text message, cold call, follow-ups, things of that effect that make your marketing efforts more effective. So, we do a combination of, it's kind of like a 3-step, like our acquisition team is kind of 3-step. We do mail, we do text message, and then we do like basically like an in-between person who is always kind of working those leads, right? Working what's coming in and then working we call them high target list, like the high target list of properties that we want to go after, right? We have a few areas where it's like, by the end of this year, I want to have spoke with every single one of those people and they know who we are, so that at the time, when the time comes, they're ready to do a deal. Maybe we can do a deal with them, right? So the marketing, I feel like, is so dependent on what your goal is. There's some areas where I'm looking to flip properties. So I'm going wide, right? I'm going wide. Here's what I'm paying in the area, direct mail and text message, and see what I get back. There's other areas where like only 409 properties meet my criteria, or like 37 properties meet my criteria. So with those, we get a little more in depth, right? We'll go direct mail, text call, direct mail, text call, and see who we've hit and who's responded. And then we'll evaluate who has and who hasn't, maybe reskip trace and get better data. But like the whole thing of this is to show there's not a perfect answer. Like if you go pull the same list and you send the same letter, you're probably going to get the same results you see that most people talk about, right? I think at the end of the day, you gotta like be creative. It's marketing, right? You gotta be creative, use different letters, use different templates, use different tactics.
We're scientists.
Yeah, right. It's almost like it's its own art and science, like mixed together. And so we do everything by campaign. Like, hey, for this West Texas campaign, we're gonna do this letter template. We're gonna follow it up with text messages that say things like this. And here's what we're going to say to the leads. But for this list outside of Austin, we're going to take a different approach where we send maybe a more like flashy package, right? Like an 8.5 by 11 envelope to those 137 people that we know. So the simple answer is it's a combo of direct mail and text message is really our main stuff. But I like to focus on the campaign, what you're going after. And I think so many people miss the multiple touches, the piece of mail, and then the text message and the call behind it, right? Mm-hmm. Or the repetition of doing that month after month after month until somebody finally calls you the fuck back. You know what I mean?
Dude, so much you covered right there. I should have been taking notes actually while you were talking, because I'm like, oh dang. So lots to unpack there, man. You're the first person I've ever heard that said that, that they're going to hit every single person in that area. And not only to grab the ones that are ready to sell now, but to have created a relationship with those people so that in the future, when they're ready to sell, I mean, that's very methodical. You know, that's amazing right there. You're the first person I've ever heard say that. And then also really digging in on the ones that have not responded. Send them something different. You know, just completely hit them from a different angle. Send them a different looking package. Like drilling down on the ones that aren't talking back to you.
Yeah.
That's another thing I haven't heard anybody bring up. So it's
I had
usually
a-
like if they ghost
had
you,
a
they don't
deal.
respond. People don't even get back to those people at all. Right?
One of my really good friends in real estate, I can't take credit for this. I wish I could. But he's working on a storage deal, and actually they already closed it. And he always uses this. It's hilarious to me, this tactic to get people to respond to you that normally won't. You just go that super extra mile and personally figure out where the hell they live or take mail, right? And he goes to Home Depot and buys a mailbox, and he puts a letter inside the mailbox, and then he mails the mailbox to him. And so they get a mailbox in the mail, and it opens it up, and it's like, hey, just trying to get my foot in the door here, like call me type deal, right? I've heard of other people sending a chocolate boot, like a big old like 2-foot chocolate boot, and saying, hey, just trying to get my foot in the door. You know what I mean? So there's so many different creative ways to market. And I think that's why people get stuck in this business, is they're just thinking one text message is going to do it. Right.
And the
Where, like,
ROI on that could be so simple, like $50 for a mailbox or a chocolate boot might get you a 10x ROI.
right. So, but like,
Brilliant.
that's obviously not feasible if there's 10,000 properties you're trying to hit. Right.
Yeah.
So that's why you got to treat it campaign by campaign. What's the best way to go about it? But there's a few areas outside of Austin that I know they're in opportunity zone, path of growth. They're great for like development type plays. And it's like, hey, there's literally 109 of these properties. So why can't we spend 6 months figuring out who all 109 of these people are? That's how we've got a really good deal of ours already, is just finding and nurturing the right people. And so we're just kind of taking it to the next level of how many people can we get into the system, and how much can we nurture them, so that at least worst case, we can put the first offer in, so that they know whenever they do want to sell. Because people aren't idiots. Like if you own property on the outside of growth, they know it's worth something. So you want to get in there and be that person who can make the first offer and can wiggle your way to the right deal. And it'll only work half the time or less than half the time. But when they do call and they want to make a deal work, if you're the first person they think of, then you probably got a chance.
Hey man, so what do you do with these people like that you have an idea that they might want to sell, but they're just not ready yet? What kind of a follow-up system do you have? You just hit them with a piece of mail every now and then, or do you have like a text drip going out to them? And how often do you touch these people? Like if they've already told you like, nah, maybe later, but not now.
Yeah, so I don't do a lot of auto, which is probably like against the rules or something these days. But like I find if it's somebody I really want to talk to, we're gonna set a task, a reminder in a system where we can use that and follow up on that. And then that's what we're gonna use to do it, right? So we use this is Hive Mind. We use Follow Up Boss for a lot of our sales stuff, and we use all sorts of different fucking systems all around. And at the end of the day, wherever it is, wherever we're storing that piece of info, it's normally a 3-month touch, right? If someone has said like, hey, nice to chat with you, we had a productive conversation. What are we like, we don't want to sell right now, or we've been thinking about it. My favorite is I got to talk to my 16 brothers or whatever it is, right? And then it's like, yeah, that's a 3-month from now person. So we just set follow-up tasks, you know what I mean? And we always make sure that like we have a tagging system. So it's like if something is tagged as a high value target, it has to have a follow-up. Like it has to have a task. It has to have a follow-up date on it. And if it doesn't, it pops up into this place where, it says, why the hell does this not have a like a follow-up date on it, right? And that's just as simple as, hey, Jim, this is Clint. We chatted a couple months back. Just want to see if you guys had investigated selling the property again or anything like that, right? And we had a deal we did this for 9 months on, and there were 19 people involved in the sale. So it was complex, and they weren't lying when they were like, yeah, that's not like over the top. It really was 19 people. And they kept telling us, well, most of us want to sell, but not everybody. Most of us, not everybody. And we were just the first. Actually, we weren't even the first people. They tried to list it. They tried to take another offer. It fell through, and then they ended up taking our offer, right? And that's a deal we'll buy for 1.3, and we'll put 200K into, and we'll sell for like 3.5. You know what I mean?
Nice.
So that one was just a function of follow up in the right people, right area. Right. So once the checks hit, you become a believer of the system. Right. But yeah, man, for marketing, like I really just try and focus on the campaign. And then for follow up, if it's a wide range of people, we just have them on a consistent marketing list. If it's a place I want to do deals, it's like there's always a text or an email or a voicemail going out to them, right? Every single month, some form of something's going out.
Are you always chasing bigger deals now? Or you've kind of leveled up to chase bigger deals? That's all you're chasing 100%?
I always tell everybody I talk to, like, you never run from what's worked,
Yeah.
right? So I've done a handful of bigger deals, and I've done a medium amount of medium deals. I've done a lot of small deals. And so my goals kind of reflect that almost backwards. It's like I want to do more big deals, but like this year, I still want to do like 1.5 million in flips, and I want to do 1.5 million in notes, right? Those are all things I've done before. And I, with very little change, pretty confident will execute and do again. But then on my board, I also have, I want to do like 5 7-figure development deals, right? So that's where the business isn't really honed in yet, where it's a lot of just brute force learning, trying, failing, succeeding, whatever, right? So yeah, I'm not running from what's worked. Like we have areas that we work, we have places that like all day, every day, I can buy a property for 9K and I can sell it for 7K down and 500 a month for 10 years. So literally there's an area we do that for. We buy them for 9 to 12 and we sell them for 5 to 7 down in 4 to 500 bucks a month for a decade. It's
Forever.
crazy. Like that's just the kind of stuff where you know about it. It's like, I just can't not do that anymore. Like I could never stop doing that until the well runs dry.
It'd be a sin to not go after
It
those.
would be.
I think me too, man. People ask me because I do tend to talk a lot about bigger deals because that's what I'm after. That's what my radar is on for, and I want to get better at it. Not that I'm the expert in that space, but that's if I'm only focusing on that, then those will start to appear more often. But then I also tell people, yeah, don't like jump over a dollar to pick up a dime, right? So if something hits you in the face, even if it's a house, take whatever you can get along the way. But again, like just kind of having your radar on for the targets.
And that's what I say,
after.
like,
Yeah.
there's two sides of that coin. If you're a Tony Robbins fan, I'm a Tony Robbins fan.
I love Tony Robbins. Yeah.
Tony Robbins talks about momentum. He talks about momentum. And the average person, if you do try, like it's like the pattern is you do something, you get a result, you analyze that result. And based on what you feel about that, that tells your internal self, do I do it again or do I quit? Right. And when people start, they often get these ideas like, I want to do these big deals. I want to do these $1 million deals that they're talking about. But at the end of the day, it's like I got my start because I was having a lot of micro wins.
Yeah.
I was doing 7K here, 12K here, 9K here, 200 a month here, whatever it was. Right. And at some point, that's what I needed to feel like I'm being successful. Right.
Yeah.
If I had to go in and wait 12 months to find a deal like this and then wait another 12 months to do it and sell the whole thing, like I would have just been in the hole all this money. I've been pissed the whole time. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't tell people who are brand new just to go chase. It's like, you don't have the expertise yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do stuff where there's less moving parts. It's easier to do. Maybe you don't make as much the first couple of times, but you want to do something to where you get momentum, you get experience. Right. I tell people like until the 4th or 5th year of my land business, I never really took a huge check from it. Like I would take nice monthly checks or quarterly or whatever. But like in the last couple of years, I finally took like some 6-figure distributions or some big deal wins. Right. But up until then, it was a lot of like cycling. Hey, I made 28 grand here, but I got to put 10 grand back into the business for marketing expenses and other shit. Right. So it was always like that until the 4th or 5th year, when the experience and time and deals added up to where finally like we were taking, good checks home. So, just like you said, don't chase a dime for a dollar, right? If it's right in front of your face.
Yeah, man. I think that's another thing too. That's why I try to be careful, right? When people are kind of looking at you, when you're a little bit in the spotlight in this business, you try to not put anybody in a funny situation. So I try to steer people away. Like, don't just be well hunting, because it might take you 6 months to find that well and another 6 to close it. So yeah. In the meantime, grab whatever you can again, but have your radar on for one of those whales, because
100%.
Yeah, they're very nice.
And with that, right, Hive Mind, incredible community. You guys have an awesome community. I can't get over it. There are so many people who like just like the most that they've gotten, the biggest return they've gotten out of like an investment in community, investment in coaching, investment in a program is exactly what you just said. Is like you're doing deals, you're doing the base hits, you're hitting the doubles, right? You're making nice checks here and there, but you don't feel like that growth is, and then that opportunity is there, right? That opportunity is right in your face. There's a big deal, you know, in your gut, it's like the right thing, but who do you turn to actually get the deal done, right? Because if you've never done it and you're trying to go from putting a $40,000 property under contract to a $1.4 million property under contract, and there's contract steps and there's due diligence, there's feasibility, and there's all this shit that needs to happen that you're not used to. If you don't have someone to be like, dude, what the hell do I do here? You know
What's a
what I mean?
LOI? What's a LOI?
Yeah, what is this thing that they want? I don't get it. Like you gotta have that. And that's the biggest thing, I think, because like you got to get started and you got to do something, and eventually those deals come up. I remember vividly there's a deal, and it's funny because one of my clients ended up getting the deal. But it was like, call it 3 years ago, this deal came up. It was like 500 acres in a pretty known like area in Arizona. And it was just perfect, the amount of road frontage, the electricity, the everything. It was like just a beautiful buy at 60K, sell at like 400 or 500K once you're done with it all. Right. Beautiful deal. And I worked my tail off to get this deal, had no clue what I was doing. And eventually, just for whatever reason, the sellers came to the conclusion that like even after call and text, it's just like, no, we're just not going to sell it right now. Right. And then about 2 years later, one of my clients gets this person calling them and they're asking me about it. And I'm looking at the deal. And I'm like, man, this thing seems like really familiar. Like, I don't know exactly what it is. And I went and I dug back in our system, and I had spent probably months on trying to get this deal, like so much time. And I just messed up. I took too long on things. I didn't like, when you first get that deal, you want to check every single box. In reality, you need to check like 4 boxes and get under contract. You know what I mean? And I didn't do that. And so like, you know, to fast forward through this whole thing, she ended up getting the deal under contract, bought it for like 80. And I think they were going to sell it for like 350. So something good like that. And it was a tough seller, and it was like a difficult situation. And it's a literal example. And like, I lost the money. I didn't get it. It was one of my clients, which was great. But like they, just by knowing how to act faster and how to get the right contracts in place, how to take the right steps, they were able to lock it up when I was like fiddling around trying to things I thought I needed to do that I didn't need to do, right? Lost the deal. So people, community, who you're around is always the ticket.
You know, I was talking about that.
Say it one more time. People, community, and what?
People, community, and who you're around.
Who you're around. Okay.
It's always the ticket to be able to get those, like to be able to get the deals done, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah, that was kind of the driver behind this whole entire hive mind thing. Is like, let's get ourselves around some people who are really doing it, right? And with the expectation that a lot of people that came on board would be a lot smarter at this than we are, and they would accelerate the growth for the whole. And I was talking to one of my guys about this today. I got a 5 acres in Conroe, Texas for 11 grand, and I wholesaled it for $3,000 when I first started. Because I called an agent or somebody over there, and I told him that I had some property in Conroe, and he shot me down quick. He's like, oh no, nah, that's far out. Nothing's happening out there. So I'm like, okay, I'll make me a quick 3 grand. The person that I sold it to listed it for 190. And I'm not even mad about it. Because it's like, I feel like I've paid that for my education. So that gives me permission, you know, to make 50 grand or 100 grand on the deal, because it's like, I paid $150,000 education. And that's only one example, but there's plenty of those that I have in my memory banks now. So it's like, yeah, so if I paid $1 million or $2 million for my education, like it's all good, because now not only am I learning and using that now, but I'm also sharing with other people. And, you know, so I think it's a good environment. But like you said, being around the right people, being in the right groups and in the right environments is everything. Because if I had known what I know now, I mean, yeah, I could have added an extra 7 figures to the books for the last couple of years. Right. But here moving forward, I know we'll make up for it quickly. And then another thing that you had said about, I dropped it. Never mind. We'll come back.
Okay.
So we kind of mentioned we're going to cover this, but let's talk about tax liability and how How are you dealing with that? Because
People are talking about this.
a lot of people can make money, but they don't have the tax liability to hide it or bury it,
Yeah.
should I say?
Yeah. So I got hit with my first big tax bill like 2 years ago. And that was enough to make me like really have to figure out how to not let that happen again. Right. Um, so the last couple of years, and I'm in a little different position. I've got the land business, but I have a bunch of other businesses and entities, and some are corporations and some are trust. And like it's easier to move money around when you have, so like that's why it's a clear example of being in the game of business in general is in your favor for tax liability, right? For example, I was trying to close a storage deal at the end of this past year and just freaking couldn't, stuff fell through, came up in the inspection and feasibility and just couldn't close it before the end of the year. And that close was supposed to give me about $500,000 in losses. And then it's just not there. And so now you have to pay tax on that $500,000 in gains. And we, did a strategy that a friend of mine knew from one of his tax advisors, and I ran by my people, and where I was able to offset a financial year of one business and basically write a service contract between the two and like create a loss in one and a gain in the other. And, one of them ran January to December. The other one runs December to November. So I have till next November to get that gain off. But that was honestly just a lucky grab this year, right? That happened. My main strategy, it's real estate, like real estate is the thing that works. It's you're either investing into a cash flowing vessel like a business, okay, investing your business and creating losses on a balance sheet for a business that's growing, right? Especially like, for example, when you're starting a hive mind or a software, for the first 3, 6, 9 months on the P&L, it's really easy to show losses, right? For that first year, it's easy to show losses. So when you're in a growth phase, you're not as worried about it. But when you're in a phase of consolidation and you're bringing a lot of cash in, you really got to figure out where to put it, right? And so my vehicle of choice has been storage. You can generally find, and especially for the people who are listening to this who are high income earners, like you really got to understand this. Like you have things in your life, things in your business sphere that create income, right? Those are things that pump money into your personal financial system. But at the end of the day, you got to have buckets to hold it. Because if you just hold fiat, if you just hold currency, then you're like, at the end of the day, currency devalues at a crazy rate. And so there's no like, you're just going to pay a big tax bill. And then all this value that you've earned in the marketplace is it's just going to naturally go down. So you got to find something to defer that, right? I like storage a lot because we're land people and we don't like people. We like very simple. And so like storage doesn't like obviously there's people storing things and tenants, but the amount of issues you find relative to residential real estate, commercial real estate are a lot simpler, right? And that's why you see a lot of the Blackstones and the Trident Capitals and all these people are getting so deep into storage over the last 2 or 3 years is because it's a very recession-proof, consistent asset that pumps out around 8 to 15% of your money per year, right?
Actually does better in a recession.
It does better, right? Yeah, people, yeah, absolutely. It's recession-proof. That's why they're interested in it, right? It's a very recession-resistant asset, so that's why it's very attractive. But the other great thing about it is just like when you do costs, like you can do cost segregations against it. And as a general rule of thumb, if you put $100,000 into a facility, right, most banks will loan you about 80%. So let's say you're buying a $500,000 small storage facility. With that, right, you're going to put about 100,000 in. The bank's going to give you 400. And at the end of the day, when you do the cost segregation on that, you're going to generally get about double what you put into it as a loss, right? So I put 100,000 in. I'm going to show a K1 that's going to be minus 200,000 against my income for that year. And that's through cost segregation and like different strategies you can use there. But in the meantime, the capital I put in there, that 100,000 is going to pay me about $1,000 a month, right? And if you want to get creative and do value add strategies and stuff like that, you can grow the value of the asset, and it's just going to grow with time as well. So yeah, I'm a huge believer in commercial real estate in order to like take your capital and offset it. There's also other great strategies like overfunded whole life is something that people don't talk about enough, I don't think. Like you can basically go and overfund a permanent insurance policy with capital gains that you have, and you can use that insurance policy to invest. And you can invest tax free through that. The guru popular word for that is the infinite banking concept. But really what it is it's just overfunded whole life insurance. And you use
Dude,
that as a way to invest.
I've been looking to chat with somebody about this for probably about 6 months now, and obviously not very hard because, of course, I would have probably ran into them a lot quicker. But that's something I've been super interested in, man. Can we expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So like, let's say over the past 5 years, you've made $500,000 and you got it sitting around, right? You're like, oh, I could put it into an asset or I could put it into something else. And there's this idea of, right, we have families and people grow. Insurance in itself is a product, right? So like there is a return on investment that comes from having insurance simply on the fact of the peace of mind it gives you that you know that a permanent insurance, a whole life, right? And quick disclaimer, I'm no financial guru, nor am I an insurance salesman. But at the end of the day, there's like two different kinds of insurance, right? There's typically term life insurance, which is where you pay or your employer pays a small monthly fee for you. And if you die and get hit by a bus, you get a payout, right? And then there's permanent insurance or whole life insurance. And that's where you pay, most of them are done over the course of like 3 to 5 years. You pay $100,000 into this policy. And for your whole life, no matter what happens, at the end of your life, that principal balance will pay out to whoever the guarantees are of it, right? But it's an asset on the balance sheet, just like a house is. And so banks will lend against your whole life policy. And often the insurance providers will lend against your whole life policy for you. So let's say you have $100,000 in a whole life, you could typically take 50 to 75% of a loan against that. Some of them I think are up to like 90. And the great thing is you can invest through that policy and it's tax free. So instead of having capital sitting here where you have to, you put it into a deal and you pull it out of a deal and you pay capital gains tax on it. you use a whole life policy and it's a tax sheltered investment. You use that in order to buy and flip your properties. And then a lot of what you take out of it will be tax deferred or tax free. And so there's a lot of strategies like this. There's self-directed IRAs, 401ks, whole life insurance, all sorts of things, right? But at the end of the day, you want leverage from something. And so if you can get the asset on your balance sheet, that's why I think whole life's so cool, because I have $200,000 in whole life insurance personally. And what I do, like, I know I've put that amount of money into it, right? And it's cash that I don't have access to. But at the end of the day, regardless of anything that happens, if my business has caught fire and everything I owned fell into the hole and I died, I still know my wife would have at least $200,000 to like get and to go with, right? Because it gives you a peace of mind at the end of the day, but it's the governments love it because it's stable tax, it's stable fiat for them, and it's investable. And so in the IRS tax code, they give you tax breaks for using it, right? So there's all sorts of little things like that, but places you can put your capital and then you can lean against that in order to do deals. That's the ticket. That's the key.
Dude,
You're playing with your retired funds that you can not touch and put in deals and make more money with it, but not touch it.
Like anyone that has a 401k or like an IRA or whatever, my personal opinion is you should roll most of it into a whole life policy.
Yep.
Or a self-directed IRA. But whole life is much more flexible than self-directed. With self-directed, a lot of times you have to put a lot of the profits or percentage of it back into the IRA itself, whereas whole life is very directable. So at the end of the day, man, whether it's a whole life insurance policy or it's a storage unit or it's a house, like having something on your balance sheet that the bank will lend against for you is oftentimes going to get you a much lower, kind of almost a tax break on doing deals through it. Right. So
I think that's something that a lot of people need to start talking about, because the only thing you ever hear the gurus saying is like, oh, I made 100 grand, I made 500 grand, I made $1 million. Like, whoop-de-doo, what'd you do with it?
right.
Where is it at now?
What they're not telling you is that they're putting 800,000 of it into an apartment syndication because they know it pays them 9% and they get to write the whole thing off. Right. That's what they don't tell as much, because those opportunities are less abundant.
I say they sound less glamorous too, right? Because when you're talking about like wealth preservation, it sounds cooler to say that.
Hey
you're
man,
going out.
I made $1 million. but I actually put 858,000 of it into a 5-year real estate place, so I don't have to pay any taxes. But I still made $1 million. But at the end of the day, that's the right and the smart thing to do, right? Is to put it into cash flowing assets.
I think that's something that we need to start talking a lot more about as a community, because I really do feel like real estate and the community publicly is like its own entity. And we got to take care of our people, man. That's something that me and Daniel really care about. I'm sure you do too. I know you got an awesome group. We hung out and chat with them one time. So I know you got a lot of good people in there. But it's like, I want to take care of our people, man. I don't want to see anybody, go after it, do really well, and then lose their ass on the back end because they didn't set it up properly. So I think we need to start having those conversations more publicly, even if it's not as glamorous. It's something that's super important and something I've been thinking about a lot lately.
Absolutely.
So let's kind of jump down the note route. You've talked about a lot of notes. Are you keeping all your notes? Do you sell them, or are you just keeping it for cash flow with those $9,000
I
and
keep just
$12,000?
about every note.
Keep it
Just
out.
about every note. Yeah.
That's huge. So let's talk about the note strategy and how it can be used to let people free out of their 9 to 5, because a lot of people think they need rentals to get free. So if my brother listens to this, I apologize, but my brother's like, I need 10 rentals to get free from the job. And I'm like, you don't need rentals. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So, my answer will not be as sexy as you may expect, because I
Okay.
like to keep it real. If you're right, so to answer your question, yeah, you can cash flow the shit out of land, mostly out of rural land, very rural land. That's
Yeah.
like pretty far away from anything, because there's not a massive demand for it and banks won't lend against it. And so pretty much anybody who can connect buyer to seller is going to be able to make significant money in that niche. So whether it's 3 hours from a major city in Oregon or Tennessee or Colorado or Texas or Arizona or any of the other 44 states, like, it will work, right? And it's because of those facts. Banks won't lend against it, and there's not as big of a demand, say, within 30 minutes of Austin, where I live, right? So for those two reasons, you can come in and construct deals, and they're typically smaller dollar deals, but they're deals where you can buy them for 30% of the retail value, right? And you can go out and get 10, 20, 30, 40% of that value down from a buyer, because you made them aware of the fact that they can finance land through you, right? Because most people you can't go to the bank to get a loan for it. And therefore they just don't know that they can own land. And in reality, like, for a lot of people in specific income brackets, like lower income brackets, they can own land by going through you, right? Because you have the ability to source it at 40 cents on the dollar. And so you can afford to take 25% down and the rest over time, right? And so that's, like I told you, the first deal I did, and that's a lot of what I did when I started, is I would buy pieces of property for $1,000 to $5,000, sometimes a little less, and I would sell it for 3 to 10 times that amount on a note, right? And I would always get my money back in 6 to 12 months max, oftentimes most of it up front. And then I would just create that cash flow. I'm 6 years into this, and like, I have notes right now that are just starting to pay off from when I started, right?
Obvious.
So they've cash flow for that long, and yes, they don't have the depreciation, and they don't have the, asset value or appreciation of the asset, whatever. Well, what they are is they're easy to do, and it's easy to create cash flow that can last you 5 to 10 years,
Yep.
right? And they're easy to do in the fact that I was able to do, in my first year of being obsessed with it, almost 100 of them. And this is with almost no team, with very little team, with very little knowledge. Honestly, I was still an idiot. Like, at one point we audited those properties, and about 25% of them, I had to go call this. Like, I had already sold them. So I already sold them on notes, people paying me for a year. And at one point I was like, I need to audit this, because I know there's some stuff like messed up in here. Like, some closings were done wrong. Some names were wrong. I knew it. And we found like 20 properties, man, that I had to go back to the sellers and almost just like beg them to, like, hey, I filled this deed out wrong. Like, I need you to re-sign it. And I'd send them gifts, and I'd send notaries. I spent so much money doing that. But that's just like to illustrate, you can do a lot of these deals quickly. You can do 5 or 10 of these deals a month, and they can truly net cash flow you $100 to $400 or $500 a month, right? And then you stack those up and talk about your exit number, and then there you are. Now, the non-sexy side of this is if you want to grow a business, the first $5,000 or $10,000 you think's for yourself actually goes back to growing the business. Right?
That's your marketing money.
That's your
Every
marketing
month.
money. So
Every
everyone's
month.
like, once I get to 10,000 a month, I'm gonna be able to quit my job. And it's like once you get to 25,000 a month, you can probably quit your job because 10,000 of it needs to keep going to mailing and getting more deals. And then after that, you'll have some money to play with. Right. So that's my non-sexy answer is it's not as quick and easy as it sounds, but it happens. It can happen very rapidly. And especially in this real estate market where houses are so hard to come by, like I think it's the no-brainer strategy.
But I like that you said you have the non-sexy extra too, because a lot of people that think it's all sunshine and rainbows.
100%.
And I think the crazy part about it now is that now you can do the same thing with a larger deal that cash flows bigger. So I think Anthony had a deal that was paying like $7,000 a month or something like that he had for a little bit. So one big deal can easily cash flow a large amount if you find the right one. But the small wins definitely pay off in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, we pull. I don't know. It ranges with defaults and late payments and overpayments, but just off notes, man. Like after 5 years of consistent effort on it, we pull over $50,000 a month. That's all debt free. Has no like commercial bank any debt against it, right? 50 grand a month. I mean that changes everybody's life.
That's significant as hell.
That gives you money to run a business, gives you money to run your life, and gives you the mental freedom to go chase after whatever you want to do, right? So for everybody that's like, oh, you have to just do big deals. I'm like, dude, I made my life off small deals, right?
Yep.
Now I have the freedom to go after big deals and it's fun. But a lot of people you kind of gotta bite the bullet at some point and choose something to get into. And for a lot of people, if you know in yourself that you need those wins, man, start with some desert squares in the middle of Arizona. You'll pick them up and you'll sell them and you'll be on your way. You'll start seeing profit and you'll be like, oh my God, this thing works.
I've never had any luck with those, man. And I guess because I've never done mailings and I've never been able to pick those up, but I'll see them. Somebody will send it and hey, 3 acres in the middle of this desert, it's 400 degrees. And I'm like, who would buy that? Next thing you know, it's sold. Dude made $8,000. I'm like, holy crap, somebody bought it. That's amazing, dude. That's a good niche that nobody's paying attention to. If you want to talk about low-hanging fruit, I mean, wow, that's incredible. But it just goes to show you, it's like an NFT. I mean, it has value to somebody. It's like a trading card. I own this square of paper in the middle of the desert that says that I have that asset now. And somebody's.
Dude, I have this guy that he's just a perfect example of who would buy one of these properties. He works in some agricultural type job, kind of out that way, wherever this property is. And he works basically 2 weeks there on and then a week off, and 2 weeks there on and a week off. And I guess the guy just didn't always want to go home, or maybe didn't have something to go home to, or whatever the situation was. And he found a property that we own, man. And he just it's the rules of the property are you can't stay on it in an RV for more than 30 days at a time. Right. Well, he's like, that's perfect, man. I go to work. And then 2 weeks later, I come back and I crash on the property for a week or two. And then I drive back to work. Perfect example of somebody, right?
Amazing.
One time I bought a property that ended up being 100% of a swamp. I just didn't know it. It didn't look like it on the map. It was just 100. At this point, I wasn't even checking for wetlands. It was 100% a wetland. It was just underwater. And I was like, I'm never going to get out of this. Somebody paid me 2 times what I bought it for. I thought I was God had saved me. And later I was like, I think we were following up on the sale or whatever. And I was like, what are you guys using it for? Oh, we've been looking for a place to run our 4-wheelers and go duck hunting. And this thing was only 12 grand and that's perfect. You know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I meant when I bought that property. You know what I mean?
Dude, I love this business. I really do feel like that. When I remember kids collecting cards and Pokemon cards and sports cards. And, it's man, this is the game that we're playing. It's you have a whole cabinet full of these cards that say you're the owner of these unique properties, in America. So I think it's badass, man. I feel super blessed to be in this business. We come across the coolest shit, the coolest deals, the nicest people. And I'm a contractor, so I grew up fixing houses and painting and roofs. And, you said it's not sexy, but it's not sexy? Changing a toilet. in the middle of the night, or fixing a busted water heater at 1:30 in the morning, you know? That's not sexy.
I have too much anxiety to build a large commercial rental portfolio. So I'll stick with storage where I can just throw their shit in the dump whenever they don't pay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, worst case, you get a roof leak and it ruins all their stuff. I'm sorry, write a check. Here you go. I apologize. Have a
I got
nice day.
insurance for
Yeah,
that.
my insurance policy will write you a $3,000 check, or I'll just freaking cut. Right, there's so much less to deal with. But anyhow,
I think about that because I have friends that build apartment complexes, and I'm like, I just don't want to even have the anxiety. Like, hey, one of our units burned down. Like, even though I personally
dude,
don't have to address it, I
one of
just
my
don't want to hear about
buddies,
it.
he's out y'all's way. He buys a ton. His name's Adrian Salazar. I think he's under 30. His company has like close to 1,000 units that they're managing now. So they're
Nice.
crushing it in the commercial like apartment real estate game. But he was telling me this story one night, man. And he was telling me how one of the oh man, I probably shouldn't tell the story, but anyhow, I probably should have said his name until anyhow, I'll just make it simple. Like
We'll bleep it out.
a gun went off in somebody's apartment. Okay. And it fired through 2 other apartments. And had this one girl not been working late that night, it would have blasted right through her friggin' bed. It did blast through her bed. She just wasn't there.
Damn.
And this guy ended up being like a convicted felon, and the old owners of the apartments didn't screen it properly and had like dozens of illegal guns, owned an illegal gun, like all sorts of crazy shit that like I have just like after hearing that, I mean, 99% of it's not that, but I just don't really, I don't know. I'm not built for that.
I feel the same way, dude. I've gotten so much abuse from like my construction business, and just like I said, having other people's problems become your problem. But I could just think of it like, hey, one of our, some person got killed. Like, oh my God, like I'm losing sleep at night. This is terrible. Some kid burned, like, holy crap. I don't want to
I
hear about
know,
it. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to know about it. Path of least resistance.
Our land sits there and it's quiet.
That's what I always tell everybody. I'm like, why'd you choose land over like houses or over like commercial or whatever? I'm like, whoa, I buy the dirt and the sticks and then I sell it, and it's still dirt and sticks, like 100 years from now.
You have to hurt yourself on dirt and sticks. Dirt and sticks can't hurt you. You know what I mean?
I love it, man. I feel so blessed to be in this business. I wish I found it a long time ago. But man, yeah, just to be here, I feel super stress free. Get up whenever I feel like it, make my own hours. Like, I think that was the ultimate freedom. And then you do have like the mental capacity to be able to be more creative in your business, because what we do is so rewarding. We get to help people out of weird, difficult situations. And then, like you said, we can reward people that otherwise couldn't be able to buy their own property or their own land. I had a guy, and it was about an hour east of Austin, Page, Texas. And the guy, he was a Spanish speaker. He was the first one who went to go look at it. And he's like, hey, there's some other guy here right now looking at it. He's like, where are you? I got 10,000. I'll give it to you right now in your hand. Cash. He's like, for the down payment. He's like, don't sell it. And I had it listed for like 94.9. And man, everybody started off, hey, I'll give you 100. Hey, I'll give you 105. Hey, I'll give you 110. It was going all the way up to like 160, 170. I had this guy like at 125, I think. And he's like, he starts messing this long text. Please, man, I don't have anything. I've never left any assets to my kids. I worked my whole life. I've never saved anything at all. I really need this land, please. And I'm like, oh, dude, I sold him the land for like 25,000 cheaper than my highest offer. I'm like, you got me, dude, emotional.
Dude, there are, I've seen it. There are some people that focus on this, like this is their business model, is they do these deals where they create small, medium-sized acreage parcels, because for like non-US natives, like one of the I don't even know what the word is, like the stake in the ground type thing you're looking for is to own your own piece of property, right? So there were whole companies and development groups that focus on creating low, medium income, like you can buy it with anything that you can bring to the table type deal. And what they tell me, and like some of my friends that work in the space, is that, man, the people are just so grateful, right? They're just so grateful that because people don't really realize it, but to go out and create that offering, yeah, that person who developed it's going to make a shit ton of money. That's great, right? But at the end of the day, they went out, and where they could have focused on a luxury development, they focused on creating a low, medium income development. And again, yeah, they're going to make money and they deserve to, But at the end of the day, they gave a bunch of people the opportunity to own a piece of property, something that's like really deep, like deep seated in them.
Yeah.
And I see that in a lot of different communities and people we talk to. Is like us US based, US born white folk, we're privileged, but a lot of people that come here, right? It's like, man, like one of the things that they crave is the ability to own property. And when you're sitting in bed at night asking why do people want to buy land, like there's so many different reasons, and that's just one of them, right?
I'm a sucker for it, dude. I think it probably makes me a 5% less of a good businessman because I'm just a sucker for that kind of stuff.
Look, what goes around comes around, and
Yeah.
here in about 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, I'll be dead and you'll be dead and we'll all be dead, and that money will mean nothing other than the fact that you help somebody, right?
I think about that a lot, dude. Like, like I'm gonna be dead in about 50 years. So what do I really give a shit at the end of the day?
Right.
If something amazing happened for that guy and his kids, and maybe that changed their like generations, like just off of a simple signing of a paper, and I took 20 grand less. Like freaking amazing, dude. And it makes me, I'll tell you, in my life, I'm not super wealthy or nothing, but I walk around high as a kite for little stuff like that, like where I help people out and just do stupid, meaningless shit that it doesn't mean anything to anybody else except that one person. And I walk around like, dude, like I'm high on oxygen most of the time. And it's little things like that, these little wins, these little giveaways that they're not adding up in anybody's bank account, but like my emotional bank account is freaking overflowing. Man. Yeah.
So where can people find you? What's your community? What products and service? What's your Instagram? All that good stuff.
Yeah, dude, I know you have to have some kind of killer ass training because everybody in your group is murdering, dude. So what do you offer? Like, how can people connect with you?
Yeah, if you're on Facebook, just join our Facebook group. It's called Learn Land University. You can just search that, or maybe wherever you find this podcast, you'll find it. But you could really just type it into Google also, Learn Land University. That's our Facebook group. That's where we put a lot of stuff. Otherwise, you can just find me on Instagram by my name, Clint Turner. We have a course. It's on our website. It's my A to Z everything I give away. And every time I do a podcast, I give it away half off. So I'll create you guys a coupon code. I'll call it HiveMind50. How's that sound?
Dope, man. Yeah, we'll put all the links below the show notes.
We'll put it all there. And you can just get it half off. I love to give all my stuff away. People charge thousands of dollars for it. If you follow me, you'll see I do shit all the time for $50. I'll give like everything I know on a subject away. So yeah, man, I hope that blesses y'all. We have our community. If you join our Facebook group, you'll learn more about it. And if you're in the trenches, somebody growing your business and you're looking for leadership accountability, you're looking for a group of people been there, done that. We have some communities and some smaller groups we offer for that too. So always happy to discuss it, but otherwise we give a ton away for free in our Facebook group. And if you guys are interested in that course, you can check it out.
And then another thing too that we didn't get to touch on today is you told me that you raised a significant amount of capital. So if people have extra capital that they want to park with you, or people have larger deals that they need to get capital funding for, is that something you make public, or can people connect with you for that?
Yeah, man. I mean, personally, I have amount of capital that I can invest, but I also have access to, Anthony, you'll probably understand, but like, no joke, I can make a call and I can have a $50 million deal probably funded. Right. And this is just from being in this community for a long time and networking. Like, I just know a lot of people with a lot of money. And when you can put land opportunities that aren't like apartment syndications where they kick you 8%, right? But like we're doing in a deal right now where I can give my investor 70% return on his money in less than a year. Wow. He parks $1 million with me, walks with 1.7 at the end of the year, right? Those opportunities are not available. So whenever a deal is available, man, if you need someone to tap into some funds, whether it's mine or somebody else's, we always got it available.
Dude, I'm gonna start tapping into you for that too, because sometimes like I'll see a deal go by and I'm like, man, we don't really got $7 mil to throw at that deal. I'm just gonna put that one on the back burner, but I'm gonna start putting more stuff in front of you, man. Especially, so is it mostly in the Texas, Southern Colorado, and then you said some parts of Arizona?
Yeah, my markets that I'm best in, where I know people, Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, Arizona. That's where I do a lot. I live in Texas, so I'm doing a lot more stuff locally these days, but we got people all around there. But I am doing a deal in Tennessee right now. So, like you never know. You never know where you'll end up with it.
That's awesome.
I'm starting to come across that more and more as people are telling me that, saying, hey, as long as there's profit on the back end, we kind of don't care. And I've been focusing on Texas so hard.
Pretty much the same thing everywhere.
Nice, dude. Yeah, we're gonna start to lean on you for that. And then if you ever wanted to do a presentation in front of the group and kind of share with what you're doing and you know how you are taking funds and that kind of stuff, because we have people call us all the time like, hey, I need to come up with $2 million and all that stuff. So
Awesome, man. I'd love to.
All right. Appreciate your time. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Please check us out on all platforms. Thanks, guys.
thanks, man.